Good afternoon, I'm Sara Bellamio and I'm a survey data officer at ISER at the University of Essex. And today I'm going to introduce you to the Consolidated Marital and Cohabitation Histories dataset. I will also refer to it as Partnership History dataset. This was a collaborative effort made by Alita Nandi, myself, Robert Smith, and Sita Menon. So first, let me start with a quick overview of the dataset. So for all sample members who have ever reported a partnership, this dataset provides a complete history of all types of partnership, which are marriage, civil partnership, and cohabitation, the start and end dates of each partnership spells, the reason for the spell to end, if it ended, and whether the spell is ongoing or not. So in order to create this dataset, we use data from Understanding Society, Wave 1 to 10, which contain information until 2019, and from bhps Consolidated Marital, Cohabitation, and Fertility Histories dataset, which contain information until up to 2009. So for core sample members of the first dataset, we have information about current marriage, civil partnership, and cohabitation, and changes since last interview. And we also have information about past partnerships. So in red, you can see the name of the specific data file used to create the partnership history dataset, and the W stands for wave. For this second dataset, the BHPS, we have information about the current marriage and cohabitation of the sample members, and information about past marriage and cohabitations. Also here in red, you can see the specific name of the data files used. So in order to offer more flexibility to the user, we provide the dataset in both long and wide format. You can find them as pHistory long and pHistory wide. And the main information included in these files are the PIDP, so the identification number, and the spell number, the type of spell, so again, marriage, civil partnership, and cohabitation, the partner's PIDP, if it is available, the start and end dates of the spell. We have month and year. The reason for the end of the spell, for example, breakup, divorce, but even marriage if it was a cohabitation spell that ended in marriage, and whether the spell is ongoing or not. If the spell is ongoing at the time of the last interview, we have we use the last interview date as the end date for the spell. As for missing values, we follow the same convention as in the main survey data. So we use -8 for valid skips and -9 for missing. But for date variables such as start date, end date, divorce date, we couldn't use this convention because Stata would recognize -8 and -9 as 8 or 9 months before January 1960. And this is a valid start date for us, so instead of -8, we use -720, which data will recognize as January 90,000. And instead of -9, we use -721, that's data recognized as December 1899. And those are not valid date for our sample. But if you are interested and if you want more details about that, you can consult our user guide. So here we have an example of what the dataset looks like. We have the identification number. I'm looking at the column. We have the identification number, the spell order, the status, the partner PIDP, the start and end date, the separation end date, why the marriage and the cohabitation ended, and if the spell is ongoing or not. Here we have the same individual, the same respondent. So in the first row, we can see we have a cohabitation spell that ended in marriage. In the second row, we have the marriage spell. And if we look at the start date, we can see that it's the same date as the end date of the previous spell. And then the marriage ended in divorce, as we can see. The third row, we have another cohabitation spell that ended because of it ended with a breakup. And in the last row, we have another cohabitation spell that is ongoing. So if we look at the end date, here, as the spell is ongoing, we will have the date of the last interview. So in addition to these variables, we also have the total number of spells, the number of marriage and civil partnership spell, and the number of cohabitation spells. If the respondent was ever married, ever in a civil partnership, if he ever cohabited, and so on, the last interview weight, the last interview date, and if dates were imputed or not. So let me mention some data issues. So unfortunately, for new entrants and for proxy respondents, the information we have are limited. So in fact, for new entrants, the complete past partnership history is not available, and we only have information about the number of marriage, current and first marriage dates. We also have overlapping spells or start dates that are after the end dates. So those were corrected if it was possible and only if the date was imputed, otherwise we had to leave them unchanged. Also, the end dates of the cohabitations before marriage weren't asked. So instead we use the marriage start date. About reporting issues, so if the month is missing and the year is available, we use June as month, and we imputed them, and we imputed it. But if both month and year are not available, then no imputation was made. Also, if a marital status changed between waves but wasn't reported, we impute the date using a midpoint between the two interviews date as a date of change. In this slide, we reported some summary statistics for our dataset. You can see that the total number of respondents is 76,285, and the reported total of almost 127,000 spells. In the table, you can see more in details the numbers of partnership spells reported by our sample. And here we have some examples of how our data could be used. So thanks to the presence of the PIDP variable, the cross-wave person identifier, you can match the information contained in this dataset with other dataset in understanding society. So for example, here we have the distribution of respondents and partner ethnic group. And we can notice from the first graph that the majority of our respondents is in a partnership as well with a person of the same ethnic group. The graph on the right shows the same statistics, but we also include the type of partnership spells. Here we have a second example. We have a graph that illustrates the type of partnership spells for heterosexual and homosexual couples. And we can notice how same-sex couples compared to heterosexual couples tend to stay in a cohabitation spell rather than in a marriage or in a civil partnership. And in this last example, we have birth cohorts by type of spells. And here is clear how marriage is becoming less popular and is giving space to cohabitation in younger people, among younger people. Here we summarize the differences between the dataset we talk about today, so the marital and cohabitation histories, and other two datasets that you can also find available in our website, which are the harmonized partnership and fertility histories. And lastly, here we report how to cite correctly the data and the user guide. Thank you very much for listening.